our keynote address, Maximizing Canada's Share of the Global Blue Economy, with speaker Paul Holthus, founding president and CEO of the World Ocean Council, based in Honolulu, Hawaii. Paul Holthus has been advancing ocean business, investment, and sustainable development since the 1990s and launched the World Ocean Council, WOC, in 2009. Paul is a frequent speaker at international ocean, industry, sustainability, and investment events. He was only one of 5 people invited to be a member of the UN Secretary General's expert group on oceans for the 2012 Rio Plus 20 conference. A warm hand, Paul Holthus. Paul.
Great. Well, thanks. Just on a personal note, I'm really, I'm a coastal ocean guy my whole life. And being any place called by the sea is good, particularly in an iconic place like the Bay. Heard about my whole life, so to actually be here is really great. Thank you. And on a personal note, as I say, then, so by the sea, I was born in a place called Oceanside, so anything by the sea is good for me. I grew up in the Philippines, Hawaii, and Southern California, and coastal and ocean issues and the health and productivity of the ocean have always been a part of who I am, and this has really driven the work that I do to the point that after decades working on ocean and marine issues internationally and conservation and sustainable development led to the focus on the role of the private sector. And this is why I do what I do today is really filling the gap in terms of what was needed on the international stage in the sense of bringing the private sector in a very writ large sense of the blue, what we now call the blue economy, business, ocean, and sustainable development. So what I wanted to do in terms of this great event here and Fred's sort of vision and leadership on this in thinking about Canada's role is really paint the big picture in terms of what really is the ocean economy, how it relates to sustainable development, and what then the scope of potential activities in maximizing or optimizing Canada's share of the global blue economy might be. As sort of food for thought for what we'll be covering in more of the panels. And there's been some great discussion already today around all of this, of course. So let me move through this, and then there's a panel that follows on immediately. And so I'll just run through kind of this big picture, setting the scene of the global blue economy a bit. That builds on Fred's real macroeconomic look at it and relating that to Canada. Of the data from Fred and from others in terms of the size and growth of the blue economy, and I think this has really been something that's over the last decade or so has been quite an eye-opener for a lot of people in the economic development world and in the sustainable development world. I'll mention a little anecdote. As I was departing Switzerland, I was in Switzerland for about 3 years in the mid to late 1980s, working for IUCN, the World Conservation Union, as deputy director of their global marine program. And at that point, this work to engage the business community was really starting to shape up with what I was doing as almost a personal initiative. And I got in touch with Klaus Schwab, the founder of the World Economic Forum, in 1998. And I said, Klaus, let me come develop an ocean program at the World Economic Forum. And he wrote me back, and I was telling someone last night about this, still have that letter somewhere. People wrote letters back still in the 1990s. And he said, why would we do that? Why is the ocean so important to the global economy? And we work at the World Economic Forum, we work on transport and agriculture and energy, in those sort of vertical silos, and what you're talking is about a kind of a cross-cutting look at the ocean as an economic sector. And I said, exactly, that's the point. And he said, well, we don't do that, and why would there be a need for that? And so that was the end of that discussion in 1998. Anyway, if we look at the numbers now, and this has been a really important part of the work in the last decade or a bit more, to put those numbers together in terms of what exactly is the size and scope of the ocean economy. And I think we've heard a lot today about what really that diversity is, and the word diversity in terms of economic diversity has come up a lot today already. And this is what the scale of things that we focus on at the World Ocean Council, this incredibly diverse set of economic activities that is a set of sectors that have been around for centuries, but also some very new ones in terms of renewables and now things like carbon sequestration. But also that even some of the oldest of these sectors are growing. They're expanding in the amount of activity, the duration across the year that the activity is taking place, and the geographic scope, particularly if we think about the Arctic and the high seas. And also that this sense that it's not just those direct users, it's all of the support industries that make up this overall ecosystem, and what I call the kind of surrounding infrastructure, the insurance, the finance, the legal communities. All of this is a scope at which we look at things in the World Ocean Council. And if you scale that down to a local area, you get this kind of complex picture of again, the diversity of activity, along with that growth of activity, that's making for a very complex set of conditions and opportunities and challenges in the sort of waters like those right out here in the Bay of Fundy. This is the Irish Sea between Ireland and the UK. But if we take then a quick tour of these sectors, and I'll just go through this quickly, just to really give this discussion today and tomorrow a sense of what are Canada's opportunities in a global blue economy scale. So from very traditional coastal infrastructure through to maritime transport, and hopefully you're familiar with the amount of trade, but look at, and we won't get into the details here, but just there'll be a series of graphs here, and just look at the growth projected for the international shipping sector alone. I mean, a lot of change, a lot of opportunity, a lot of challenges to deal with that. So where does innovation, investment, and sustainability come into this picture? Cruise line tourism barely had a blip in the big 2008 economic crisis. I mean, COVID, a whole different story, but it's amazingly resilient, this particular subsector within the shipping industry, and has come back incredibly from the pandemic and continues to grow and expand. Aquaculture, we've heard a lot today about this, how important that is on a global scale, how important it is to developing countries, to small island countries, where I've done a lot of my own work over the decades. This, along with fisheries, which has maxed out, and there's some great expertise here, Rashid and others, but even with the plateauing of fisheries, there's still growth in the sense of, if you look at the two maps on the left there, going from inshore areas to deep water areas. And so we've still got, even in portions of the blue economy that are sort of maxed out, growth and expansion of a different sort going on. Offshore oil and gas came up a bit earlier, something that is much criticized, but is the reality. And I'm a pragmatist, I'm a conservation guy at heart, but I'm a pragmatist. We need to work with the industries that are operating in our ocean if we're going to achieve a healthy and productive ocean over the longer term. So this is part of achieving, addressing the impacts, the issues that are affecting the ocean with those economic activities that are going on. The growth in renewables has been one of the real important stories for the ocean over the last couple of decades, and that is set to continue this sort of trajectory, particularly with the development of floating offshore wind, which means that places that have been not really involved in that are now incredibly rapidly expanding to include offshore wind energy, where there's deep offshore topography situations. So Japan, Korea, Hawaii, California, et cetera. So this is going to be something that continues to expand. Ocean energy in the sense of tidal wave, current energy, enormous potential here. And this is something that I know there's developments here in Canada and here in the Bay of Fundy. There's been things proposed that perhaps someone can update us on that when we get to a discussion about energy. A lot of promise there that hasn't been realized yet, but enormous potential. Submarine cables, the cable industry, $1.2 million kilometers. So any of us that are on a phone right now, you're part of the marine economy because 98% of that traffic is going, international traffic on the internet is going via submarine cable. So we ourselves at the World Ocean Council, we work a lot with the cable companies on this growth and how it relates to opportunities to, for example, be collecting data, and I'll talk a bit more about that later. Desalination, probably not one of Canada's highest priorities, but certainly for a lot of the rest of the world, this is an important use of marine waters for in the Middle East, of course, but increasingly in other parts of the world, Australia, California, the Mediterranean, and a lot of technology development there and focus on how to make this less energy intensive. So if you put this picture together on a global scale, we work with all of these different sectors. They've all got their sort of world ocean view, these sort of maps in mind, but you start to overlay all this and you get a sense of what does the global ocean look like. And this is the picture that emerged a few years ago from the academic community about the scale of impact on the ocean. As big as it is, and we always use the term ocean in the singular, it's one big global ocean ecosystem. As big as it is, all of it is impacted to one degree or another. And this is before a lot of the plastics data started to come out that this map was put together. And I always present this at industry events that I'm speaking at to really help the business community understand what the rest of the world is thinking about when they're concerned about the ocean. So let me just pause to give you a couple of words about who we are at the World Ocean Council. So that global picture and all of that diverse set of ocean industry actors and supporting industries, et cetera, there wasn't a platform to pull them all together to work to bring leadership companies, big and small, from across the sectors and around the world, to bring them together to work on sustainability in a coordinated effort. And so that's what we do. We've got the original and by far the largest network with some 35,000 participants from involved in the network, from individuals to businesses to investment firms to industry associations, the business media, et cetera. And we and have been formally recognized and have partnerships and MOUs with a whole range of UN agencies and others, and really are working then over the last 15 years or so to bring that level of coordination and interaction with that diverse ocean business ecosystem together at two levels. One is amongst the sectors, and what really drove this forward was creating opportunities for the different sectors to sit down together and think about sustainable development and collaboration and coordination. And so the energy that emerged when we had the shipping person sitting next to the fishing person, sitting next to the cruise tourism person, et cetera, that's when the sparks really started flying about 15, 20 years ago as I started pulling people together and led to a group of companies really wanting to have an organization. So we're a not-for-profit business association registered in the US and in Europe, and have, as I say, this recognition by a whole series of UN agencies as the platform organization that pulls the global business community together. We do that physically since 2010 at the Sustainable Ocean Summit, which is the only ongoing global business gathering, business and investment gathering, focused on sustainable development for the ocean. And then we spun off or added on a Global Blue Finance Summit a few years ago that is all continuing. And since 2.5 years ago, we have a physical headquarters now in Barcelona that the city and port have come together to host us there. I have to mention that as that part of that search effort going back 5 or 6 years or more, we were talking to different cities around the world, including a few in Canada, because up until this Barcelona package came together, we had been a virtual distributed organization with myself, where I was in Hawaii, but moving around a lot, and people in different locations. And so we had discussions with a number of places, situations here in Canada about hosting the global headquarters. Those didn't come to fruition. However, I'd say there's still opportunities, and we're now looking at regional nodes for bringing together the global business community at a regional level, or sorry, the regional business community that links into the global network. So I'd say there's something there that could be explored with Canada. And part of the pitch and the discussion with Canada was the unique three-ocean largest coastline in the world country that Canada is. And so I'm really, part of the reason I really responded so well to Fred's invite initially was because I really believe that Canada does have an incredibly important leadership role on the global stage for the ocean, for its own ocean, but also for the world's ocean. And I think the kinds of things we're talking about here today and tomorrow really are, can focus on what those opportunities are for economic development and for the future of the ocean in many parts of the world. So just to maybe wrap this overview up, to focus on the sorts of priorities, multi-industry areas of priority for action across the sectors that really are in support of a growing blue economy, of addressing sustainable development, and the challenges in ensuring we've got a healthy and productive ocean. And these, though, are all opportunities. And so to think about this as kind of, from my perspective, from the World Ocean Council perspective, of setting the stage a bit for the discussions about what are the opportunities for maximizing or optimizing Canada's role in the global blue economy. So these are the sorts of things that have emerged over the last 10, 15 years as we've pulled together the different leadership companies, as I say, from across all those sectors. And so let's just think about this a little bit in terms of where, what these issues are and what the opportunities are in Canada. So I'd say in the governance and the marine spatial planning and working to coordinate the role of industries in addressing their sustainability and other challenges, I think there's been some real pioneering work here in Canada that hasn't had maybe as much exposure and airtime on the international stage as it could. So when we think about export, and this came up a little bit in the other panel, it's not just about hardware and technology, it's also about people and expertise. And really, and it's great to have, and I spent a lot of my life working in Indonesia, to have countries like Indonesia here. You think about that part of the world and the amount of exchange that could and should be going on for these common issues. So this is an example of that would be in the governance and the resource management area. All of it backed by good science, and there's great institutions here in Canada. So a real strength and sort of export potential there. The more classic sort of stuff that really relates to where R&D and some of the technology solutions can be applied, developed to address issues locally, right out the window here in the water, and then scaled up regionally within the country and nationally and brought to other parts of the world. And we heard a bit today about things needing to be, Toby was talking about things that need to be cost effective, I think you were talking about the aquaculture. Yeah, stuff that if it's too expensive, it's not going to be able to, the uptake won't be there. So this idea of matching your solution to the market, and I'll talk about that more in a minute. So these issues like biofouling and invasive species, ocean noise, the waste issues with plastics and the need for port reception facilities, these are all key issues for companies. And there's links to this whole discussion we had about regulation that's come up several times today. So good solutions that work to deliver results link well to good regulations. And so there's great opportunities to tackle these issues here in Canada and bring those solutions to other parts of the world. Similarly, we had that great panel just a little while ago on fishing and aquaculture, real leadership opportunities, I think, for Canada there as well with the solutions that have been developed. And not, of course, to say, anything's perfect here or anywhere, but taking taking these things to heart as really something to be solved for your own country's needs, but then realizing there's a lot of other places that could benefit from that experience, and also to learn from those other places in adapting those solutions. I think that's really the way forward on this global scale. Again, it's one big global ocean, and Canada can be the ocean leader. Don't tell my friends in Barcelona I said this, on this sort of thing. On the climate change side, obviously a lot of relevance to the ocean here. And this ocean climate biodiversity nexus is increasingly the way we talk about these things, because they're all connected up. But particularly on the climate ocean connection, we then, these three key areas here on disasters, removal, carbon removal, and low carbon energy from the sea. All of this together is such an important area for effort in terms of maximizing the ocean's potential to address climate change. So the way we as humans in our coastal living need to respond. And so the infrastructure adaptation and resilience, we have a global business and investment working group on this, and the business or private sector working group in several ways. One is the port builders, developers, planners, so the construction companies, et cetera, the port operators, the investors, and especially in the investors in port development, but especially the port users, so the shipping, fishing, cruise tourism, energy, et cetera, plus not just the port, but the coastal infrastructure, the roads that right around here that allow people to get to resorts, the fuel grid, the electrical grid, all of that is business development. And so anytime there is impact from extreme weather events, which then gets layered in with flooding, wind effects, and then all of that with a sea level rise going on, as part of that, there's a business impact there. Somebody's losing money when that infrastructure is not operational. So to really create that business driver for adaptation and resilience. The CO2 removal, we had a bit of a chat last night about that, hugely important. The ocean, as I hope all of you are aware, is the only gigaton scale nature-based solution that we have available. And so there's a lot of great companies emerging, a lot of controversy over this as well, but it's something that really needs to be explored. And as Thierry was saying, we need to test solutions so that we can figure out, what might work and what has challenges that need research to overcome them. And this relates into the role of government in helping support the research. I've mentioned the renewables from the sea, a critical part of the future of the planet in terms of the potential there. And then the conservation, I think, is pretty clear, weaving that in, and the technology and other kind of innovations that can help advance marine conservation, working to address, for example, impacts on marine mammals, et cetera, is a key area where I think Canada, for example, with the marine mammal issues, in developing technologies for fisheries and aquaculture that reduce impacts on marine mammals, that sort of stuff is really fundamental to dealing with those biodiversity issues. Lastly, what we call smart ocean, smart industries. And here there's a major blue tech development opportunity. There's already a lot of great companies here in Canada. There's some great clusters focused on blue technology. This is the work, what we call smart ocean, smart industries, the work to engage companies in hosting or deploying sensors to collect data. So 100,000 merchant ships, 3 to 4 million fishing boats, as I mentioned, 1.2 million kilometers of submarine cable, tens of thousands of offshore energy and aquaculture facilities. All of that infrastructure has the potential to be helping us collect data, not only ocean data, but also, remember, 71% of the planet surface is ocean. That means 71% of our atmosphere is above the ocean. So using any of that floating or fixed infrastructure to host or deploy instruments to gather ocean weather and climate data is by far the most cost-effective way to increase our data sets on all of that, and particularly that ocean atmosphere interface. Huge technology development and deployment opportunities there. linking back to that last discussion in terms of the Navy and Defense departments around the world, we have active discussions going on with the U.S. Navy and others about their interest in that sort of stuff as well. Better understanding the ocean, weather, and climate has a lot of interest to a lot of people. And so where we can synergize around who can support that, who can support sensor development and deployment, there are some win-win opportunities there. And lastly, I was mentioning this linkage between industry, innovation, and investment. And this is the kind of sequence or cycle that we really emphasize, and that is to start with the issue. What's the problem that needs to be fixed in the ocean? And what's the incentive for that problem being fixed? And it might be public pressure on, and this is with a particular look at the role of the private sector in this. There might be a regulatory driver, there might be public pressure. So linking that industry and the incentive, that issue, the industry and the incentive, and then reaching out to the innovation community with some very specific requests for solutions, very targeted. And I think this is a little bit what maybe is the challenge for this blossoming of blue economy related innovation initiatives, accelerators, incubators, is to help them be focused on real issues that need real solutions, and not more broadly just how do we save the ocean or how do we advance the blue economy? How do we fix problem X, and who's the market for that? And that's then when you have the investment community saying, yeah, if you've got a solution for these three industries have a problem, say regarding vessels and invasive species, you've got an issue and you've got an industry that needs that solution, that's a market. And so that point about linking solutions to markets, this is really where I think Canada could excel in bringing that loop together. And then you've got an export opportunity to take those solutions elsewhere. So I will stop there and hope that gives you a sense of, from our work, who we are, what we do, and why we do it, and what's that kind of big picture combination of industries and issues, and where there might be some great opportunities for Canadian leadership in achieving a sustainable blue economy. Thanks.